Hey guys, XJ here. So today we're going to cover the best settings for the Thrustmaster T300 on surviving the first lap. So let's get started. It can be a bit overwhelming when it comes to force feedback settings between the manufacturer's software and the iRacing options inside the game. Keep in mind, I'm offering a setting for the Thrustmaster T300, not necessarily the only setting. These can be tweaked for personal preference. However, this will give you a great base to start from if you choose to later beef up the settings a bit or change them. So first things first, let's install the Thrustmaster software from their website. Now please make sure you do not plug in or connect your wheel until instructed to do so during the installation process. Once installation is complete, go to the Windows search bar in the lower left and type in Game Controller. Alternatively, you can look at the programs, scroll down to the Thrustmaster file, click on the drop down and open up the control panel. From here, you can check your settings and see that everything is working as far as after the installation. The next thing we want to do is click on the tab that says Gain Forces at the top of the screen. Here, set the strength to 100%, constant to 100%, periodic to 100%, the spring to 0, the damper to 0, and be sure to click Buy the Game as far as auto center settings. And that way it can adjust from inside of the game. Once you've completed that, hit OK. Click OK again. We're going to go back to that Thrustmaster file one more time, and we're going to check that the firmware is up to date. You can check for an update. Make sure that the software is up to date. Click OK. Click OK again. We're going to go back to that Thrustmaster file one more time, and we're going to check that the firmware is up to date. Click Firmware Update. Yes. Here, all you need to do is click OK. From there, it will run the check to ensure that you've got the latest firmware. When you get 3 green checks that says it has been updated, click OK. Do not click OK again, because that will just run it one more time. Click the little X in the upper right to close out of the system. After we've completed this process, let's start up iRacing. Pick your favorite ride and let's take it to the track. This step does not matter if it's oval or road. Once we're in session, you'll be met with the yellow bar at the top of the screen that states Configure Controls. Proceed through that process. Now be sure when you're going through this step that you turn the wheel slowly during the process. Don't turn it too fast. If you do, it can hinder the calibration process. Slow and steady. Make sure you do the same for the pedals too in order to get the best calibration. Once you've completed the process, let's go over to the options menu. On the first screen that pulls up is where we're going to work from. You'll see it's the Options tab. Over on the left, you'll see the steering, brakes, force feedback, and that's where we're going to focus on. The steering you've completed. Depending on your wheel, this could read 900 degrees or it could read 1080, depending on how you've got your wheel set up. We're not real worried about that right now. The calibration process should have taken care of that on its own. Let's talk about the brakes. The force factor really depends upon what type of brakes that you have. Considering that we're talking about a Thrustmaster T300, you've likely either got the advanced Thrustmaster brakes or the stock that came with the set. I would tell you right now to go ahead and put that at about 1.75 as a good starting point. You can learn to adjust this later for your own tastes. Let's look at the force feedback settings. Ensure enable force feedback is checked, and ensure linear mode and reduce force when parked are unchecked. On the strength, go ahead and set that for 12 right now. We'll get to that later. The Thrustmaster T300 is about 3.9 Newton meters regarding strength. So let's set that at either 3.8 or 4.0. It's kind of hard to dial in 3.9 on the slider. Dampening, 0. And minimum force, let's set that at 0.4 or 0.6%. So let's click the Done button at the bottom right and go back to the main screen. We need to drive around now and get a few practice laps in. So go ahead and click Test and get in the car. From here, I want you to press the F9 button, and that's going to bring up the graphics black box. If you'll take a look at the very bottom, where it says force feedback strength, we'll have the number that you previously set. What we want to do right now is drive a few laps around the track until an auto button appears to the right of that same bar at the very bottom. Now, when you're doing these laps, ensure that you avoid curbs, going off track, or losing control of the car. You need these to be just nice, steady laps around the track. Depending on how long the track is, or if you're on oval or road, it will pull up a little auto button that you can click on. Once that appears, go ahead, let's bring the car to a stop. Let's click that button. When you do that, that is going to take a reading based upon the force feedback and set it up properly for that car inside of iRacing. This is the best way to ensure that you're not clipping the force feedback signal by having something too strong, or you're not getting enough feedback from the system and setting it too weak. This auto system inside of this little F9 graphics black box is a great tool inside of iRacing. Now, this setting can vary from car to car and likely will. But once you've got it set up for each car, that should be it. You should never have to revisit this again. Now, I would strongly recommend continuing the auto force feedback strength setting process 2 or 3 more times. This way it will normalize and you should be good to go. And once you've completed that step, I also recommend that you exit iRacing and restart your PC. And doing this will ensure that the wheel is properly calibrated and that all the settings have taken effect. And that's it. Your wheel's now set up for the best baseline settings to ensure you get the proper force feedback during your racing experience. Okay, so remember that global settings checkbox that was mentioned, or maybe not mentioned? Well, you need to do this for each car you race. Although the process is the same as the above, you'll find that the force feedback strength setting will vary from car to car. And that's the reasons that you do not use the global settings checkbox. You want it customized for each car. Happy racing, avoid the clowns, and maybe I'll see you on the track.